The land-walking ancestor of whales. Before whales became the largest animals in the ocean, their earliest ancestor was a small, four-legged mammal called Pachycetus that lived on land. Walking the shores of modern-day Pakistan 50 million years ago, this wolf-sized creature hunted for fish in shallow streams. Over millions of years, its front legs transformed into flippers, its hind legs shrank away completely, and its nostrils migrated to the top of its head to become a blowhole. Scientists discovered this incredible evolutionary link by analyzing its unique inner ear bone, a structure found only in modern whales. The defensive chemical warfare of ancient ferns. Ferns were among the most dominant plants of the Mesozoic era, serving as the primary food source for massive herbivorous dinosaurs. To avoid being completely wiped out by hungry herds, ancient ferns developed sophisticated chemical defense mechanisms. When a dinosaur began munching on its leaves, the plant released bitter, toxic compounds that upset the animal's stomach. This early form of chemical warfare forced giant herbivores to constantly move from patch to patch rather than clearing out an entire forest. The evolutionary pressure from these toxic ferns likely influenced the shape and structure of dinosaur digestive systems. The body armor and bone-crushing club of Ankylosaurus. Ankylosaurus was built like a prehistoric military tank, covered from head to toe in thick, bony plates called osteoderms. Even its eyelids were reinforced with bone, leaving virtually no soft spots for a predator to bite. The true highlight of its defense was the massive, rigid club at the end of its tail, powered by immense hip muscles. Ankylosaurus could swing this club horizontally with enough force to snap the ankle bones of an attacking Tyrannosaurus rex. Because it sat so low to the ground, it could tuck its legs underneath its armored shell, forcing predators to give up or risk a broken leg. The evolutionary revolution of Archifructus. Archifructus is one of the earliest known flowering plants in Earth's history, completely transforming the prehistoric landscape during the early Cretaceous period. Before its arrival, the world was dominated by dull green conifers, cycads, and mosses that relied entirely on the wind to spread their pollen. Archifructus grew in shallow water and developed primitive, simplified flowers that lacked true petals but contained distinct reproductive organs. This innovation allowed plants to utilize insects for pollination, triggering an evolutionary explosion of colors, fruits, and scents worldwide. This single botanical breakthrough ultimately paved the way for the survival of diverse modern mammals and birds. The car-sized Arthropleura. Arthropleura was a terrifying relative of modern millipedes that crawled through prehistoric forests and grew up to 8.5 feet long. Weighing over 100 pounds, its flat body was protected by dozens of overlapping armored plates that made it virtually immune to predators. Despite its monstrous, car-sized appearance, recent fossil discoveries of its mouthparts suggest it was actually a peaceful herbivore. It spent its days marching across the forest floor, using its powerful jaws to crunch through tough decaying wood and ancient ferns. It holds the official title of the largest land invertebrate to ever walk the face of the Earth.
The asteroid misconception. A massive asteroid slammed into modern-day Mexico 66 million years ago and triggered the end of the dinosaurs. However, the initial fiery cosmic impact did not instantly vaporize every dinosaur living across the globe. The true killer was the trillions of tons of suffocating ash and soot launched into the upper atmosphere. This thick layer of debris completely blocked out all sunlight worldwide for several consecutive years. Without the sun, global temperatures plummeted and Earth's plant life completely died off. The loss of plants triggered a catastrophic chain reaction that slowly starved the herbivores and carnivores over thousands of years.
The giant scouring rushes of calamites. During the Carboniferous period long before the first dinosaurs evolved, modern horsetail weeds grew into massive trees known as calamites. These plants reached staggering heights of up to 100 feet and formed dense, swampy forests across the globe. Unlike modern trees made of solid wood, calamites had hollow, ribbed trunks that functioned much like giant, rigid straws. They reproduced using microscopic spores rather than seeds, releasing massive clouds of dust that settled into thick layers on the swamp floor. Over millions of years, the compressed remains of these giant rushes transformed into the vast coal deposits humans mine today. The sea monster Carcinosoma. Carcinosoma belonged to an extinct group of massive aquatic arthropods known as eurypterids, or sea scorpions, that dominated Silurian ocean ecosystems. This underwater predator grew up to 7 feet long and featured a broad, heavily armored body built for close-range ambushes. Unlike its relatives that had paddle-like legs for swimming, Carcinosoma had walking legs tipped with sharp, menacing spines. It also possessed a thick, curved tail tipped with a fierce spine, closely resembling the anatomy of a modern desert scorpion. It walked along the muddy seafloor, using its massive claws to snatch ancient jawless fish and tear them to shreds.
The terrifying falcon kick of Deinonychus. The deadly raptor Deinonychus is famous for the massive switchblade-like sickle claw on the second toe of each foot. For decades, popular culture portrayed this predator using the claw to slash open the bellies of large herbivores. However, modern biomechanical studies revealed that the inner edge of the claw was actually rounded and not sharp enough for slicing. Instead, Deinonychus used its feet exactly like a modern bird of prey, slamming into its target and using its body weight to pin the animal to the ground. The sharp claws acted like organic anchors, locking the struggling prey in place while the raptor used its sharp jaws to finish the hunt. The sonic boom tale of Diplodocus. The colossal Diplodocus used physics rather than blunt force to keep predators like Allosaurus at a safe distance. The last few feet of its 80-foot-long tail consisted of thin, highly flexible vertebrae that tapered down like a bullwhip. Computer simulations show that Diplodocus could flick this tail at speeds exceeding 1,000 feet per second, which is faster than the speed of sound. This rapid movement created a literal sonic boom that echoed through the prehistoric forest like a cannon shot. The deafening noise was terrifying enough to scare off predators, and a direct hit would easily slice through skin and muscle. The egg thief misnomer. The dinosaur known as Oviraptor has suffered from a terrible case of mistaken identity for a century. Its name literally translates to egg thief because the first fossil was found sitting directly on top of a nest in 1923. Scientists assume the creature died in the middle of raiding the eggs of a herbivore named Protoceratops. The truth finally came to light in the 1990s when another identical fossilized nest was discovered containing a preserved embryo. The embryo proved that the eggs belonged to the Oviraptor itself, completely clearing its name. The dinosaur was actually a devoted parent that died while shielding its own unborn babies from a sandstorm.
The time-traveling ghost light of the night sky. When you look up at the stars at night, you are not seeing the universe as it looks right now, but rather a snapshot of ancient history. Light travels at a set speed of 186,000 miles per second, meaning it takes time for stellar glow to cross the vast emptiness of space. The light from our closest neighboring star system, Alpha Centauri, takes over 4 years to reach your eyes. Some distant stars visible in the night sky are so incredibly far away that their light has been traveling for millions of years. This means many of the stars you see tonight have actually run out of fuel and exploded long ago, leaving behind only their ghostly light.
Haast's eagle was the largest and most powerful avian predator to ever dominate the skies in modern geological history, ruling the ecosystems of New Zealand until its abrupt extinction around 1400 AD. Boasting a massive wingspan of up to 10 feet and weighing nearly 30 pounds, this evolutionary marvel grew to its immense size through a process known as island gigantism, where a lack of competing land predators allowed the species to expand its ecological footprint. Unlike most large birds of prey that act primarily as scavengers, Haast's eagle was an aggressive apex hunter that specialized in bringing down the moa, a group of giant, flightless birds that could weigh over 500 pounds. The eagle would perch quietly in high forest canopies, spot its target, and launch an ambush at speeds exceeding 50 miles per hour, slamming into the moa's pelvis with the force of a falling concrete block. It used its massive, 7-inch talons to crush the prey's bones and sever its spinal cord upon impact, killing the giant bird instantly before dragging the carcass into the brush to feed. When early human settlers arrived on the islands and rapidly hunted the moa to total extinction for food, Haast's eagle lost its only viable source of sustenance and vanished from the planet just a few decades later.
The Earth-spanning underground mushroom. The largest living organism on Earth is not a blue whale or a giant redwood tree, but a single underground fungus in Oregon. Known as the honey mushroom, this massive organism covers over 2,400 acres of forest, making it roughly the size of 1,600 football fields. The majority of the fungus grows entirely out of sight as a sprawling network of microscopic, root-like threads weaving through the soil. By analyzing the genetic makeup of samples across the forest, scientists confirmed it is one single, continuous organism that has been growing for over 2,000 years.
Jacalopterus was a monstrous apex predator belonging to an extinct group of arthropods known as eurypterids, or sea scorpions, that terrorized freshwater lakes and river systems roughly 390 million years ago. Measuring an astonishing 8.5 feet in length, this underwater terror holds the official scientific record as the largest arthropod to ever exist on Earth, dwarfing any insect, spider, or crab alive today. It possessed a heavily segmented, armored exoskeleton and walked along the muddy riverbeds using specialized, spine-covered legs, while its rear appendages were modified into powerful paddles that allowed it to swim with surprising agility. The most terrifying features of Jacalopterus were its giant, jointed claws, which were armed with sharp, interlocking teeth and could extend nearly 2 feet in front of its body to snatch passing prey. Based on the structural design of its large compound eyes, scientists have concluded that Jacalopterus possessed exceptional, high-resolution vision that allowed it to hunt efficiently in murky, low-light aquatic environments. It ruled its prehistoric ecosystem by ambushing ancient armored fish and early amphibians, using its devastating claws to crush their protective scales and tear them apart before feeding.
The armor-shattering shockwave of the mantis shrimp. The peacock mantis shrimp possesses the fastest punch in the animal kingdom, accelerating its club-like appendages at the speed of a firing .22 caliber bullet. This punch is so incredibly fast that it literally tears the surrounding water apart, creating a physics phenomenon known as a cavitation bubble. When this bubble collapses, it releases a secondary shockwave of intense heat and light that can stun or kill prey even if the shrimp misses its physical strike. The impact generates enough force to easily shatter the thick shells of crabs, crush aquarium glass, and split human fingers down to the bone.
The pack hunting strategy of Mapusaurus. Mapusaurus was a colossal carnivore from South America that grew up to 40 feet long and hunted some of the largest animals to ever walk the earth. Because its primary prey was Argentinosaurus, a long-necked sauropod weighing over 80 tons, a single Mapusaurus could never take one down alone. Excavation sites have revealed the fossilized remains of several Mapusaurus individuals of various ages grouped together in one place. This evidence strongly suggests they formed organized family packs to coordinate their attacks against these moving mountains of meat. They would use their blade-like teeth to inflict dozens of shallow wounds, slowly wearing the giant sauropod down through blood loss. The Megalosaurus mistake. The Megalosaurus holds the historical title of being the very first dinosaur ever officially named back in 1824. Long before this official recognition, a fossilized piece of its thigh bone was discovered in England in 1763. The scientists who analyzed the fragment accidentally published a drawing of the bone completely upside down. Because of the orientation, they genuinely believed they were looking at the petrified private parts of a giant human being. The fossil was even legally catalogued under the scientific name Scrotum humanum before it was corrected decades later. This bizarre blunder stands today as the rocky and hilarious dawn of modern paleontology. Megalosaurus holds the historical title of being the very first dinosaur ever officially named back in 1824. Long before this official recognition, a fossilized piece of its thigh bone was discovered in England in 1763. The scientists who analyzed the fragment accidentally published a drawing of the bone completely upside down. Because of the orientation, they genuinely believed they were looking at the petrified private parts of a giant human being. The fossil was even legally catalogued under the scientific name Scrotum humanum before it was corrected decades later. This bizarre blunder stands today as the rocky and hilarious dawn of modern paleontology.
The eagle-sized Meganeura. Meganeura was a colossal relative of the modern dragonfly that ruled the skies during the Carboniferous period. With a massive wingspan stretching over 2.5 feet, it remains one of the largest flying insects to ever exist on Earth. This apex aerial predator used its enormous compound eyes to spot smaller insects and early amphibians moving through the swamps below. It darted through the dense air at incredible speeds, capturing prey with its long, spine-covered legs before crushing them with powerful jaws. Its immense size was only possible because prehistoric atmosphere oxygen levels were nearly twice as high as they are today. The hidden multi-ocean under the Earth's crust. Deep within the transition zone of the Earth's mantle, about 400 miles beneath our feet, lies a reservoir of water 3 times larger than all surface oceans combined. This water is not a liquid sea, but is trapped inside the crystal structure of a rare, blue-colored mineral called ringwoodite. The immense heat and pressure at this depth force hydrogen and oxygen atoms to fuse directly into the molecular matrix of the solid rock. This deep underground reservoir acts as a buffer, regulating the amount of water on the surface and keeping our oceans at a stable level for billions of years. The high-pressure diamond rain of Neptune. Deep inside the atmospheres of gas giants like Neptune and Uranus, it literally rains diamonds instead of water. The intense heat and extreme atmospheric pressure split methane molecules apart, isolating the pure carbon atoms inside. These free carbon atoms squeeze together under immense gravity, crystallizing into solid diamond stones. These precious gems then slowly sink through the fluid layers of the planet like heavy hailstones traveling toward the core. Scientists have successfully recreated these exact planetary conditions in laboratories, watching the molecular diamond rain form in real time. The battering ram skull of Pachycephalos. Pachycephalos chose aggressive offense as its primary method of defense when confronted by predators. The top of its skull featured a massive dome of solid bone that grew up to 9 inches thick. This dome was cushioned by a specialized neck structure designed to absorb massive amounts of impact energy without breaking. When threatened, it would lower its head and charge like a modern bighorn sheep, ramming its dense skull directly into the ribs or legs of attackers. A single high-speed impact from this living battering ram could easily break bones and deter even the hungriest carnivores.
The Parasaurolophus symphony. Parasaurolophus is easily recognized by the massive hollow bony crest that curved backward from its skull. This unique structure was not just for display, it functioned exactly like a built-in trombone. Scientists used advanced computer models to simulate blowing air through the complex nasal passages of the crest. The simulation produced an incredibly deep, low-frequency booming sound that resembled a prehistoric foghorn. These low frequencies traveled as infrasound, allowing herd members to communicate across miles of dense jungle. The natural instrument allowed them to blast warnings about nearby predators or call out to potential mates.
The armored deception of cycads. Cycads are ancient, palm-like plants that reached their peak diversity during the Jurassic period, earning that era the scientific nickname the Age of Cycads. They possessed thick, woody trunks protected by a heavy armor of old, stiff leaf bases that made them incredibly tough to digest. In addition to their physical armor, cycads loaded their seeds and fronds with potent neurotoxins and carcinogenic chemicals. Any dinosaur that managed to chew through the tough exterior would experience severe poisoning and neurological damage. Despite these extreme defenses, some specialized herbivores evolved tough stomach linings capable of neutralizing the toxins to exploit this abundant food source. The immortal vampire virus. The rabies virus has the terrifying ability to completely hijack its host's central nervous system to ensure its own survival and transmission. Once inside a mammal, the virus travels directly up the nerve pathways to the brain, completely bypassing the bloodstream and immune system. It then migrates to the salivary glands, causing intense drooling to maximize the viral load in the mouth. Simultaneously, it rewires the brain to cause extreme hydrophobia, making the host terrified of water so it cannot wash the virus away. Finally, it triggers intense neurological aggression, forcing the animal to bite another creature and successfully pass the virus to a new host.
The real T-Rex look. Popular movies often portray the Tyrannosaurus rex as a sleek, scaly lizard, but reality was much fluffier. Recent discoveries of close T-Rex relatives show clear evidence of primitive, hair-like feathers covering their bodies. Paleontologists now believe that young T-Rex hatchlings were covered in thick, downy fluff to stay warm. As they grew into massive adults, they likely retained distinct patches of these feathers along their spines for communication. This means a real T-Rex looked and moved much more like a terrifying giant carnivorous bird than a reptile. These feathers may have even sported bright colors used to show off and attract potential mates.
The suffocation-proof super blood of the Ruppel's vulture. The Ruppel's vulture holds the official record for the highest flying bird in the world, capable of soaring at altitudes of over 37,000 feet. At this extreme height, the air is so thin and freezing that a human would lose consciousness and suffocate within a few minutes. To survive, the vulture possesses a specialized type of hemoglobin protein in its blood that binds tightly to oxygen molecules even under extremely low atmospheric pressure. This allows its cardiovascular system to extract every single available molecule of oxygen from the thin air, powering its massive wings across continents.
The exploding tail of Shunosaurus. Shunosaurus was a long-necked sauropod that looked like an easy target for predators, but its tail held a devastating secret weapon. While most sauropods had whipped tails, Shunosaurus evolved a massive bony club at the very end of its tail spike. This club was equipped with 2 pairs of sharp conical spikes made of solid bone. When a predator approached, Shunosaurus would swing its tail like a medieval mace, shattering the jaws and legs of attackers. This unique tail club allowed the herbivore to defend its blind spot without ever having to turn around and face the danger.
The singing desert sand dunes. In about 35 deserts worldwide, including the Sahara and Death Valley, the sand dunes can spontaneously emit loud, low-frequency droning sounds. This phenomenon occurs when millions of perfectly rounded, identical-sized grains of sand slide down the face of a dune simultaneously. The friction between the moving layers of sand creates acoustic vibrations that sound exactly like a deep booming bass or a swarm of bees. These musical dunes can sing continuously for up to 15 minutes, creating a sound loud enough to be heard several miles away.
The underwater ambush of Spinosaurus. Spinosaurus was the largest carnivorous dinosaur ever discovered, measuring even longer than a Tyrannosaurus rex, but it did not hunt like a traditional land predator. It possessed dense, heavy bones similar to penguins and manatees, which allowed it to submerge and control its buoyancy underwater. Its nostrils were positioned high up on its long crocodile-like snout so it could breathe while keeping its body completely hidden just below the surface. This massive predator swam through Cretaceous river systems, using its sensitive snout to detect the vibrations of large fish. It would then strike with lightning speed, using its hooked claws and cone-shaped teeth to snag slippery prey. The brainless tail myth. The massive Stegosaurus grew to the size of a city bus but possessed a brain no larger than a walnut. When early paleontologists examined its skeleton, they discovered a strangely large hollow cavity located near the hip. This discovery led to a popular theory that the creature required a second butt-controlling brain to move its tail. Modern science has completely debunked this myth, confirming that no dinosaur ever had 2 brains. The hip cavity actually housed a glycogen body, which is a structure used to store energy-rich sugars. Modern birds still have this exact same structure today to help power their lower bodies and nerves.
The Olympic sprint of Struthionomus. Not all herbivores fought back, some relied entirely on unmatched speed and agility to survive. Struthionomus, whose name means ostrich mimic, had long, powerful hind legs and a lightweight skeleton that allowed it to run up to 50 miles per hour. This incredible speed made it faster than almost every predator in its Cretaceous environment. It also possessed large eyes and excellent vision, allowing it to spot danger on the horizon long before a predator could get close. By the time a carnivore launched an ambush, Struthionomus was already a distant blur on the landscape.
The sniper vision of Tyrannosaurus Rex. Tyrannosaurus rex relied on far more than just raw biting power. It possessed some of the most advanced sensory equipment of any prehistoric hunter. Unlike most predatory dinosaurs whose eyes faced sideways, a T-Rex had forward-facing eyes that provided excellent binocular vision and depth perception. Its visual clarity was actually 13 times sharper than a human being, allowing it to spot stationary prey from miles away. The T-Rex also possessed massive olfactory bulbs in its brain, giving it a sense of smell that rivaled a modern bloodhound. This combination of sniper-like vision and an acute sense of smell made it impossible for prey to hide.
The blood-squirting eyes of the Texas horned lizard. The Texas horned lizard has developed a grotesque but highly effective defense mechanism to terrify and confuse predators like coyotes and foxes. When cornered, the lizard can restrict the blood flow leaving its head, causing the blood pressure in its sinuses to spike dramatically. The pressure becomes so intense that the tiny vessels in the corners of its eyes burst open, shooting a stream of foul-tasting blood up to 5 feet away. To make matters worse for the attacker, the lizard mixes the blood with a toxic chemical derived from its diet of venomous harvester ants. The time-stopping slumber of the Greenland shark. The Greenland shark survives the freezing, pitch-black waters of the Arctic Ocean by living life in extreme slow motion. It has the slowest swimming speed and metabolic rate relative to its size of any fish, moving at a glacial pace of less than 1 mile per hour. This ultra-slow metabolism allows the shark to live for an astonishing 300 to 500 years, making it the longest living vertebrate animal on the planet. Because they grow only 1 centimeter per year, these ancient predators do not even reach reproductive maturity until they are roughly 150 years old.
The woolly mammoth was a magnificent icon of the Ice Age that possessed a suite of specialized adaptations perfectly engineered to conquer sub-zero temperatures. To survive the brutal Arctic tundras, these massive herbivores were draped in a dual-layer coat consisting of a coarse outer layer of long guard hairs and a dense, insulating underwall. Beneath their thick skin lay a 3-inch layer of pure fat, and their small ears and short tails evolved specifically to minimize heat loss and prevent frostbite. Their blood also contained a modified form of hemoglobin that continued to efficiently release oxygen throughout the body even when their limbs were dangerously cold. While the vast majority of mammoths vanished roughly 10,000 years ago due to shifting climates and human hunting pressures, an isolated population successfully survived on Russia's remote Wrangel Island until just 4,000 years ago, outliving the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Because many of these creatures died in freezing environments, scientists frequently discover remarkably preserved mummies tucked deep inside the Siberian permafrost. These pristine specimens contain intact hair, muscle tissue, and even liquid blood, allowing geneticists to fully map the woolly mammoth genome and fueling active modern scientific projects aimed at cloning and resurrecting the species.
The world-altering summer that never arrived. In 1816, a massive climate anomaly caused the Northern Hemisphere to experience what historians call the year without a summer. The disaster was triggered by the colossal eruption of Mount Tambora in modern-day Indonesia, which threw millions of tons of volcanic ash into the sky. This global blanket of volcanic dust reflected sunlight back into space, causing worldwide temperatures to instantly plummet. Snow fell in New England during the middle of July, and severe frosts destroyed crops across Europe and North America. The resulting mass famine and economic chaos forced thousands of desperate families to migrate, completely reshaping global history. The Titanomyrma supans. Titanomyrma was a genus of giant ants that marched across North America and Europe during the Eocene epoch, millions of years after the dinosaurs vanished. The queens of this species were the size of a modern hummingbird, boasting a massive body length of over 2 inches and a 3-inch wingspan. These giant ants lived in sprawling, highly organized underground colonies and thrived during periods of extreme global warming. Because of their sheer size, these insects did not just forage for seeds, they hunted in coordinated raiding parties. They easily overwhelmed small mammals, lizards, and other insects using a combination of powerful slicing mandibles and formic acid sprays. The meat-eating Titanoptera. Titanoptera was a group of giant, predatory insects from the Triassic period that were closely related to modern grasshoppers and crickets. They possessed an impressive wingspan of nearly a foot, but their most terrifying features were their heavily modified, raptorial front legs. These front limbs were lined with sharp, interlocking spikes designed to grab, pierce, and securely lock struggling prey into place. Unlike modern grasshoppers that eat leaves, Titanoptera were aggressive carnivores that actively hunted other insects and small vertebrate animals. Their wings also featured specialized ribbed structures, meaning they could rub their wings together to produce deafening acoustic calls to attract mates.
The venomous bite of Sinornithosaurus. The small bird-like predator Sinornithosaurus possessed a secret weapon that set it apart from typical hunters of the Cretaceous period. When scientists examined its skull, they discovered deep grooves in its long teeth that looked identical to the fangs of modern rear-fanged snakes. The skull also featured a distinct pocket in the jawbone that likely housed a toxic venom gland. This meant the predator did not need to rely on sheer muscle power to bring down its prey. Instead, it would ambush small animals, deliver a toxic bite, and simply wait for the fast-acting venom to paralyze its target.
The immortal survival of the woolly pine. The woolly pine is a living fossil that thrived during the Jurassic period alongside massive long-necked sauropods. Scientists believed this ancient tree had been completely extinct for over 2 million years until a park ranger accidentally stumbled upon a hidden grove in Australia in 1994. Its bark looks uniquely like bubbling chocolate, and its branches grow bizarre fronds that resemble fern leaves. Because it survived multiple mass extinctions virtually unchanged, it provides a direct botanical window into the prehistoric world. Today, botanists fiercely protect the exact coordinates of the remaining wild trees to prevent contamination and disease. The deep-sea diving bell of the water spider. The diving bell spider is the only spider in the entire world that spends almost its entire life living and hunting completely underwater. Because it still breathes air, the spider spins a web dome between submerged plants and uses the hairs on its abdomen to trap air bubbles from the surface. It deposits these bubbles underneath the web, creating an organic diving bell that acts like an external gill by drawing oxygen directly out of the water. The spider lives safely inside this bubble, emerging only to snatch passing aquatic insects before dragging them back inside its pocket of air to eat. The deadly deception of the zombie caterpillar. The Baculovirus is a highly specialized parasite that turns ordinary caterpillars into literal mindless zombies to spread its offspring. When a caterpillar ingests the virus, the parasite takes absolute control of the insect's brain and alters its natural behavior. Instead of hiding safely under leaves away from predators, the zombie caterpillar climbs to the very highest point of a plant. Once it reaches the top, the virus releases enzymes that literally dissolve the caterpillar's body into a liquid, black goo. This viral soup then drips down onto the lower leaves, contaminating a massive surface area so other unsuspecting caterpillars will eat it.
The Xerces blue butterfly was a strikingly beautiful insect native to the coastal sand dunes of San Francisco, California, distinguished by the vibrant, iridescent violet-blue coloration shimmering across the upper surfaces of its delicate wings. The underside of its wings featured a contrasting slate-gray pattern adorned with a mesmerizing array of distinct, white-ringed black spots that provided excellent camouflage when it rested among local foliage. This butterfly maintained a highly specialized, symbiotic relationship with native ants and relied entirely on a specific group of legume plants, such as D-weed, to lay its eggs and provide food for its developing larvae. As the city of San Francisco rapidly expanded during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, massive urban development, military base construction, and real estate projects completely destroyed the fragile coastal dune ecosystems the insect required to survive. The butterfly was last seen flying in the wild in 1943, earning it the tragic historical distinction of being the very first American insect species driven to total extinction directly by human industrialization and habitat destruction. Today, the preserved museum specimens of the Xerces blue serve as a powerful global symbol for insect conservation, reminding modern biologists of how easily unique local species can vanish forever.